Hi, y'all. I'm John Blackburn, the barn expert.
Dear barn expert, Ashley Kies needs help with an existing barn on the deep, dark clay of North Texas. Erosion and water running down the barn's center aisle.
Ashley, I understand your problem, but that can be solved. You've got a drainage problem, which is a problem around a lot of barns. The way to start a barn, if you're starting from scratch, would be to build that barn up so everything drains away from the barn. Well, obviously you have an existing barn and that can't be done, but you can actually revise the drainage around the building where gutters are taking water away from the barn, or you have gutters if you don't already. But the point is to get the water away from the barn so it's not ponding, but also, as it sounds like from your problem, it might be running back into the barn and running down the aisle. So that first is get the water that's coming off the building or on the soil or grade around the barn away from it. And that's done by grading and creating drainage swales and different ways of getting the water to drain away, since you can't raise the barn. The other is the aisle way. Now, there's different ways of doing it. Of course, you can come in when you can put in a hard surface, and some people put in, interlocking rubber brick. That's all very costly, but that solves the problem. You elevate it a little bit. So let's say your barn is at grade level. Then I would come in the barn when I would probably maybe even pour a slab and put mats on top, or you come in, you put rubber brick on top. Those are the expensive solutions, but they would elevate it and everything would drain away. Actually, another solution is to use popcorn asphalt. Now, to explain what popcorn asphalt is, it's basically asphalt, but it's called popcorn because you remove all the small fines out of the asphalt and it drains. It's very rough and it's fairly porous, and that's the whole point. You want it to be that way. The way it works is by doing that, and you have the asphalt on top of gravel, then if you could pour water on it, it'll drain right through, right before your eyes. It drains right through. The nice thing about that is it doesn't form black ice in the winter when it freezes. It's more rough, so it doesn't get as slick for horses, and their shoes will have a little more grip to it. The drawback is that you get all that little dust and dirt that collects into it. If your ground does freeze, then what's nice about the asphalt is it tends to reheal itself because it softens in the summer heat, and it will tend to go back together. It's not like concrete where you'll get a separation, where you may get a gap, you may separate, some part might settle, and that's from the heaving of the soil underneath. But by having the asphalt, it's more flexible. And so it solves a lot of problems. It's not the cheapest, but it's cheaper than concrete and a better solution than concrete, in my opinion.
Ashley also has lighting issues. She currently has fluorescent in the center aisle. Is there a better light source? And what should she put in her stalls?
First thing you might want to do is if you can't move your lights, you don't want to move your lights, you get a cage to put over or a lens that's shatterproof. So that protects the bulb from breaking and keeps all that glass out of the barn. So that's your first goal. If I were redoing the lighting in the aisle, I would turn that lighting and mount them flush with the bottom, so instead of hanging below the truss, they're hanging at the level of the truss. So that light is still spreading out just as it would where you have them, but it would be more protected, a little less exposed than where you have it now. You can do the same thing in the stall areas. Now, the other problem is with the light, and I've noticed in the photographs, is you got all these raw wood trusses and unpainted. What I would do is I'd go in and I would basically spray paint or use a light-colored transparent stain over all the entire structure inside, certainly the roof and the roof trusses, because then you get a light reflectance, so whatever light you're going to have will tend to bounce off that, and you get better distribution, better value for your dollar, so you'll be less foot candles are needed, and that's a unit of light. And so it'll cost you to do the painting, but it will make the place look better and brighter. The other thing it will do is what happens with trusses is you get lots and lots of cobwebs or bird nests, and they're harder to see. But if you have this light-colored structure painted, then you get the reflectance, you hide the cobwebs, but you can tend to need to keep it clean. Ashley, in general, the other way, other than adding to the lights and adding to painting the interior, is add more windows. Now you can buy windows, they're custom or whatever, they fit the opening. That could be costly and not within your budget. What I've done before is you get what's called a polycarbonate. It's the same plastic material that's used in a lot of skylights. It comes in sheets. You can actually put a channel at the bottom, the channel is running across the top of your window on the outside, and then you can cut one of these panels. You don't have to frame it. You just put it in there and it slides. And you can actually put it in there and you can slide it, or if there's rain coming, or in the winter, you can actually take it out. So it's completely open, or not in the winter, in the summer you take it out, so you have that wind blowing through the barn.
And John, what about keeping the barn warmer in the winter? Ashley says it gets awfully cold.
Ashley, you asked the question about how to keep the barn warmer in the winter. Well, that touches on a really big issue, which I could talk about all day. But I mentioned about the openings, the windows you have. If you've got a way to close the windows and the doors at what I call horse level, let's say from 8 feet down, then that's all you really need to do. A horse is really intended to live outdoors. It doesn't go from 20 degrees to 80 degrees. It goes behind a hill and maybe get out of the wind or out of the sun or out of the rain, and by running under a tree to control its environment. The reason it does that is because it's more healthy. It's allowed to breathe. It's allowed to choose its own environment. If you put a horse in a barn that's closed up, tight, then you're going to create problems. You're creating basically an incubator for disease. Actually, the important thing to remember is the barn needs to ventilate year-round.
Great advice, barn expert. Best of luck, Ashley, with your barn project. Remember, send in your questions for our barn expert. Go to our website, wildaboutbarns.com, or send your photos and questions to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.